At the age of 15, the ninth prince and I were trapped in the mountains for a day and a night as he came to my rescue. To protect my reputation, he married me by imperial decree. Later, he ascended the throne as emperor, and I became the empress. Cold-hearted and indifferent, he kept no other consorts in the harem besides me. Everyone says he's deeply infatuated with me, but only I know. His heart died the moment he saw the daughter of the censor, whom he had admired for years, marry someone else. Even so, he has never treated me poorly, yet the kinder he is, the more uneasy I become, until worry consumes me and I fall ill. On my deathbed, I grasp his hand and sigh. I'm sorry, if there's another life, I won't marry you again. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the cave where we had been trapped together that day. To avoid repeating the same mistakes, I desperately tried to crawl out, but he grabbed me, his expression inexplicable, and said, "What's the hurry? Is spending this brief moment with me so unbearable for you?" Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. The night was vast and empty. Dewdrops trickled down the winding rock face, falling into the cold pool with a tinkling sound. Wrapped in a black cloak with subtle patterns, I shivered and huddled in the corner of the cave. Not far away, the ninth Prince Linden had taken off his upper garment, revealing his well-defined torso as he sat by the fire grilling fish. I sat there in a daze for a long time before gradually coming to terms with the fact that I had been reborn. My emotions were a mix of astonishment and regret. The timing of my rebirth was truly unfortunate. Had it been just a little earlier, I could have avoided being trapped in this cave with the ninth prince. Although in our previous life in the cave, we merely occupied separate spaces, eating fish and warming by the fire, without any improper behavior. Yet, a man and a woman alone together in one room would inevitably raise eyebrows, no matter how innocent. To protect the reputation of our duke's household, the emperor issued a decree, betrothing me to the ninth prince. The imperial will was not to be defied. It was only later that I learned the ninth prince had long admired Malcolm the censor's daughter. Unwittingly, I became the rod that parted the loving pair. In my previous life, I was consumed by guilt and remorse over this. If it hadn't been for my reckless playfulness during the spring hunt, wandering deep into the mountains alone and getting separated from the group, the ninth prince wouldn't have had to rescue me and end up trapped together in this deserted cave. Ultimately, he had to sacrifice his own marriage prospects to protect my reputation. This weighed on me day and night, the distress so overwhelming that I fell ill and passed away by the age of 18. No, this time, I must not repeat the same mistakes no matter what. I made up my mind and stood up. I found the gentlest rock face and began attempting to climb up. Yet after climbing for a long time, I made little progress, sweating profusely from anxiety. Just as I was at a loss for what to do, a chilling voice suddenly came from behind. "What are you doing?" I felt a chill run down my spine, retracting my spider-like limbs. I turned around somewhat awkwardly. "Ah, well, I thought we shouldn't just sit around waiting here. We need to figure something out." He glanced at the nearly vertical cliff, dozens of feet high, then looked at me, skinny as a chick, and scoffed. I also realized my own overestimation and flushed with shame and anger. "Laugh all you want. Once we're out and the emperor grants me the marriage, let's see if you can still laugh." I glared at him resentfully but didn't dare to curse out loud. I plopped down beside him and stretched out my hands to warm them by the fire. He gave me a cold glance, then turned his back as if unwilling to face me directly. A sense of frustration welled up in my heart. Though he harbored no romantic feelings for me, we had grown up together in the palace since childhood. Surely he didn't have to treat me with such disdain. Someone suddenly shoved a grilled fish into my hand, and he said calmly, "Eat up and then go to sleep. I'll keep watch. I'll wake you if anyone comes." Well, actually, he's not a bad guy. I picked up the grilled fish to take a bite, only to find my hands trembling uncontrollably. It's so cold down here in the cave. My clothes are soaked from falling into the pool, and even wrapped in his cloak, I still feel cold, bone-chillingly cold. I was shivering more and more violently until he finally noticed something was wrong. Frowning, he asked me, "Juliet, are you cold?" I nodded, unaware of the sweat pouring down my forehead. Wait, that's not right. Dizzily, I thought to myself, I didn't feel this uncomfortable in my previous life. Could it be because I worked up a sweat climbing through the cave earlier and then got hit by the cold wind? It's nothing. Shivering, I put down the fish in my hand, wrapped the cloak tighter around myself, and prepared to nestle in the nearby weeds for a while. At any rate, once day breaks, the palace people will find us. We probably won't die. After walking a few steps as if treading on clouds, I suddenly felt weightless, dizzy and disoriented. I was Lyndon carried back to the fire. He half carried me in his arms and removed the cloak from my body. Then he began to undo my clothes. I leaned against him dizzily for a while before finally realizing something was wrong and quickly pressed down on his hand. "What are you doing?" He pushed my hand away, took off my outer garment, and said in a calm tone, "Wearing these wet clothes, I doubt you'll even make it to tomorrow morning. Don't worry, I'm not despicable enough to take advantage of you at a time like this. It's not that I'm afraid of that. But in our previous life, we were completely innocent, and even then, it was hard to explain clearly to others. Given the current situation, isn't it even worse than the last life? No, listen to me. Our reputations must not be ruined here. You have martial skills. I can't escape this place, but you might be able to. If we truly spend the night here, the Emperor will surely force us to marry." "Absolutely not." His hands, undoing his clothes, paused almost imperceptibly, but quickly resumed. "To have the precious only daughter of the Duke's household marry a disgraced and unfavored prince like me would indeed be a great injustice to you." My eyelid twitched. I wanted to shake my head but lacked the strength. No, that's not what I meant." He grabbed my resisting hand, his tone somewhat fierce. "Would you rather die sick here?" I can hardly hear what he's saying. I only felt the firm, scorching skin of his chest pressed against my shoulder and arm, so hot it was almost burning. Soon, I was tightly wrapped in a warm, dry undergarment. He laid me flat on the ground, deftly removed my skirt as well, and wrapped my legs with his coat. With a bonfire burning nearby, the uncomfortable damp chill finally faded away. Gotta say, Lyndon is actually a pretty decent guy, I hazily thought to myself before passing out. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the apricot yellow sheer curtains of my boudoir. A sweet floral scent of spring wafted past my nose. The window was slightly ajar, and voices could be heard from the courtyard. "What should we do about this?" "Don't worry, madam. There must be a way. We'll talk to the young lady slowly after she wakes up." My heart skipped a beat. Oh no. I hurriedly rolled out of bed and ran out without even putting on my shoes. My mother was startled when she saw me like this and hurried over to help me up. "You silly child. You're not fully recovered yet. What are you doing?" "Mother," I began, only to realize how hoarse my voice was. "Something's happened, hasn't it? The 9th Prince and I. The Emperor hasn't issued the decree yet." "Has he?" "As long as the decree hasn't been issued, there's still a chance. This time, even if I have to shave my head and become a nun, I won't marry him again. I've never done anything to feel guilty about in this life. But in my past life, because of a moment of recklessness, I ruined the marriage of my savior Lyndon. This has been weighing on my conscience, and I can't let it go. In this lifetime, even if it costs me everything, I must not harm him again." My mother placed her hand on my forehead. "What nonsense are you talking about, child? Who said you have to marry the 9th Prince?" I froze, momentarily unable to process her words. "The 9th Prince and I were alone together in the mountains for a full day and night. Besides marrying him, what other option do I have?" "Hey, you can't just say such things." My mother quickly covered my mouth. "Are you delirious from the fever? Child, the 9th Prince did help search for you, but you were found along with the other palace servants. How could you say it was just the two of you alone?" A sharp clang echoed in my mind. I felt as if I were hallucinating. Mother said, "Lyndon has never been alone with me in the mountains." At first, I thought I had misheard. Then I began to suspect there was something wrong with my memories from my past life. Only later did I gradually come to understand. Perhaps it was my words in the cave that reminded Lyndon. Of course, he didn't want to marry me, so he silenced the palace servants who found us and altered the official account. This reversal was a good thing. Yet for some reason, as I lay on the couch, I suddenly felt an emptiness in my heart. In this lifetime, he wouldn't have to marry me by imperial decree for the reputation of our duke's household. He would probably follow his own wishes and wed Malcolm the censor's daughter instead. Feeling gloomy, I forced myself not to dwell on this matter. That day, while gloomily reading in my room, a maid from the 10th princess's entourage came to summon me, saying the princess was unwell and requested my company in the palace. I frowned slightly. That girl had always been robust. When could she possibly fall ill? Though my heart was filled with doubts, I still carried the nourishing medicinal food prepared by my mother and headed toward the palace. Just as I arrived at the palace gate, she was already waiting there, sleeves rolled up. "Oh, you're so slow. If we're late, we won't get to see it." She hurried over and pulled me along. "What do you mean? Are you really sick or not?" "Sick. Even if the heavens themselves fell ill, I wouldn't catch a thing." She moved with such speed that she practically flew, leading me straight to the newly constructed martial arts platform in the palace. The crown prince had recently developed a passion for martial prowess, and the palace had welcomed many robust and formidable warriors. As soon as I entered, a wave of masculine energy hit me. Everyone was wearing only loose, tied trousers, their bronzed and muscular torsos on full display. The young maids behind me, inexperienced in such scenes, covered their eyes and shrieked in alarm. The 10th princess, however, waved her hand boldly and declared, "Go ahead and pick. I've already spoken to the crown prince. Take whoever you like back to your estate as a personal guard." How perfect would that be? There were already over a dozen people sparring on the field, and upon hearing that the princess was selecting candidates, each of them fought even more vigorously, as if eager to splash their sweat all over our faces. I let out a long, unsure of what to say, when the 10th princess exclaimed, "Oh," and looked toward the entrance, saying, "Ninth brother is here." My brow twitched, and I instinctively felt a pang of guilt. Quickly averted my gaze from those burly warriors. "Your Highness." I gave him a slight curtsy as a greeting, yet his expression remained somewhat cold, his eyes sweeping over the warriors engaged in combat before finally settling on my face. A mocking smile appeared on his lips. "You're not even fully recovered, yet you have the energy to come see this. Enjoying the view." Me? It's all right. The 10th princess, always outspoken and unable to stand him mocking me, pushed him aside. "Why are you bothering with us? You'd better go take care of your Lisa. She just came by to see you this morning too." Hearing the name, Lisa, I felt inexplicably uncomfortable. Lisa, the daughter of Censor Malcolm, Lyndon's beloved from his past life. Yes, in my past life, it was me who played the villain and kept them from being together. Now I've made up for it. What does it have to do with me anymore? Angrily, I turned around and randomly pointed at the most handsome one on stage. "I'll take him." The air froze for a moment. The sturdy man I had chosen was the first to react, leaping off the platform and bowing to me with a grin. "Many thanks for your favor, miss. I'll spare no effort in ensuring your safety." Lyndon didn't look at me, his gaze fixed solely on the 10th princess. What nonsense is this? How can keeping a man of unknown origins by your side ensure any safety? The sturdy man protested with an aggrieved expression. "Ninth prince, we all come from respectable families. How can you say we're of unknown origins?" He turned back to look at me with a smile. "Miss, I'm a professional bodyguard, and my monthly fee is only 5 taels of silver." His smile was charming, with a pair of dark eyes that gleamed brightly under the sunlight. Before I could get a clear look at his face, a tall figure stepped in front of me, completely blocking my view. Lyndon stood with his back to me, his voice icy. "I'll give you 10 taels to serve in my household." With that, she left without looking back, taking the man with her. The 10th princess was utterly shocked. This morning Lisa also said she liked this guard. Is ninth brother blatantly snatching him for Lisa? Me? What bad luck. What terrible luck. In spring, invitations from various households and noble families are more abundant than ever. Mother watched as the maids dressed me up and helped me into new clothes, then stepped forward herself to smooth every strand of hair into place, leaving no room for any mistake. Of course, I understood that spring banquets were, in essence, occasions for young ladies from boudoirs to meet potential suitors. In this lifetime, since I was not betrothed to the 9th prince, Mother naturally had to arrange other matches for me. As soon as we took our seats at the spring hunting grounds, the Duchess of Luogua approached with a smile, followed by her third son Marcus. Marcus was 3 years older than me, tall and towering, standing a full head above me. His face still bore traces of youthful innocence, yet it was always sternly set, making one feel inexplicably guilty upon seeing him, as if owing him a substantial debt. I rose to greet him. Lady Mabel. Young Master Marcus. Marcus's stern face suddenly flushed slightly as he returned my greeting. Duchess Lugu's wife. Lady Mabel glanced back and forth between us before suddenly smiling and saying, Marcus, didn't you say you had something to give to your sister Ear? Why don't you take your sister with you? I glanced at my mother, who was also smiling and nodding in agreement. My heart suddenly sank. It seems my mother and Lady Mabel had already arranged for us to meet and evaluate each other today. I scanned the field but couldn't find Prince Linden anywhere. An inexplicable sense of disappointment spread endlessly through my heart. It seems that in this lifetime, there will truly be no more intersections between him and me. Linden arrived a bit later today. As soon as I entered, I couldn't help but search for Juliet's figure. I saw her standing under the pavilion, laughing and chatting with a young man beside her. Marcus. Linden suddenly furrowed his brows. The Kerwin family has already decided on the James family. So fast. The sudden surge of restlessness in his heart burned hotter than the scorching sun overhead. He grabbed the servant from the Kerwin household and asked coldly, Where is Leonard? The young master. The young master has gone into the woods. Linden did not hesitate, mounting his horse and riding straight into the forest. He soon found the heir of Duke Chen, Leonard, who was chasing a deer. He knocked an arrow and shot dead the spotted deer Leonard was aiming at. Leonard frowned and glared over, but upon recognizing him, quickly dismounted to bow in greeting. Linden waved his hand impatiently. Enough with the formalities. I heard your sister is already betrothed to the James family. Juliet. Betrothed to the James family. Leonard frowned in confusion. No, I haven't heard anything about it. Linden looked displeased. What would you know? You don't even bother to ask about your own sister's marriage. Leonard grew even more puzzled, scratching the back of his head in bewilderment. Why is your highness suddenly concerned about my sister's marriage? Does your highness think the James family is unsuitable? Linden remained silent. The steed beneath him paced restlessly, making his impatience all the more apparent. After a moment of silence, he suddenly spoke. What do you think of me? Leonard furrowed his brows almost imperceptibly, appearing relatively composed. Yet his mind had already been struck by several thunderbolts out of the blue. He held his forehead for a long moment before slowly looking up and asking, What does your highness mean by that? Stop playing dumb. Linden frowned. Tell me, between me and Marcus, who is more deserving of Juliet? Leonard felt a storm of memories flashing through his mind. Every interaction between Juliet and Linden. When did the two of them? No. When did Linden start having feelings for Juliet? His thoughts were complex at this moment. Marcus was not his immediate concern, but the Crown Prince's recent foolishness and repeated grave mistakes over the past 2 years due to trusting vile characters weighed heavily on his mind. Anyone with clear eyes in the court could see that the Emperor already harbored intentions to depose the Crown Prince. Although the 9th Prince Linden came from humble origins, he truly stood out among the imperial princes. Over the past 2 years, whether in disaster relief for the Yellow River or tax reforms, he had achieved remarkable merits. Once the Crown Prince was deposed, he would very likely become the next heir apparent, the next emperor. Such a person would never have an empty backyard. Juliet is pure-hearted and simple by nature, certainly not someone who could survive in such a complex environment. Your Highness, Ear has been spoiled by my parents since childhood. I fear she may not be fit to be your highness's princess consort. Leonard knelt on one knee, looking at Linden with nothing but earnestness in his eyes. Linden frowned, naturally understanding his concern. Aside from her, there won't be anyone else in my backyard. Leonard stood up from the ground, brushing the dust off his knees. Oh, then it's fine. If you like her, go propose to her yourself. After speaking, he seemed to recall something and looked up at Linden. Could it be that your highness is feeling embarrassed? Linden shot him a sharp glance. Nonsense. If your sister is unwilling, my proposal would only make things difficult for her. You have to help me. Leonard, you need help with this kind of thing. My engagement with Marcus was ruined. This is utterly absurd. My eldest brother Leonard actually said that Marcus brings him bad luck. If I were to marry Marcus, he, as my brother-in-law, would be so severely affected by this bad luck that he'd lose his soul and meet an untimely death. That's way too harsh. Although his parents scolded him for talking nonsense, they ultimately called off the engagement. These past few days, whenever I said even a word or two in praise of any young master in the capital, Leonard would inexplicably chime in with a couple of remarks. He's not as good as you say. I don't think he can even compare to a single hair on the ninth prince's head. Not that I'm criticizing you, Juliet, but your taste in men really needs improvement. I was utterly fed up. So when the Lantern Festival during the 3 spring months came around, I took my maid Dora and 2 guards out for some air. From the top of Manhua Tower, the capital's streets stretched out before me, brilliantly lit and bustling with activity. Below, a lantern parade was winding its way through the street, with crowds packed tightly on either side. Dora suddenly let out a surprised, "Huh," and pointed at a figure in the crowd. "Isn't that the ninth prince?" I never thought the ninth prince would come to such a place to join in the excitement. I instinctively looked over. Dressed in a white-blue round-collared robe, he stood among the crowd, carefully holding a shimmering rabbit lantern. His appearance was strikingly different from his usual cold and stern demeanor. Under the glow of the streetlights, his expression was indescribably gentle and soft, completely different from his usual self. Even though I had known him for many years, even as his wife in a past life, I had never seen such an expression on his face. My heart inexplicably skipped a beat. Just then, I saw him lift his gaze to look in another direction through the crowd. On the other side of the crowd, Juliet stood. She was beaming with a radiant smile, raising her hand to greet Lyndon. I flustered and averted my gaze. Turning my back, I leaned against the railing in some bewilderment. Even though I had heard about it in my previous life, seeing it with my own eyes now still leaves me stunned. Yes, indeed. Originally, they were the ones who were truly in love. In the past life, it was just a misalignment. Now that they have returned to their rightful places, I can always find my own ideal husband. I tried to comfort myself, but when I opened my eyes again, I saw Lyndon holding a rabbit lantern, standing right in front of me. The spring night breeze blew past, lifting his dark hair slightly. It brushed against my cheek. "Juliet, are you crying?" His voice fell softly by my ear. I raised my hand to touch my face. It was indeed wet and cold. No. I hastily wiped my face clean with a handkerchief and tried to step past him to leave. He grabbed my arm. "Juliet, I have something to say to you." I pushed his hand away through my sleeve. "Your Highness, our statuses are worlds apart. Men and women must be kept separate, and we have no dealings with each other. There is truly nothing to say." "Juliet." He swiftly stepped in front of me, his expression complicated, his gaze burning as it roamed over my face. "Do you detest me this much?" "I detest him." I raised my head and looked at his fair and handsome face. In both past and present lives, it was only the ninth prince who despised me. Now he turns around and says it's me who despises him. The cheers from the lantern parade on the street grew louder and louder. The sparks shooting into the sky instantly illuminated his strikingly handsome features. His eyes, glaring at me, were bloodshot, the phoenix-like orbs brimming with what seemed like either hatred or sorrow. For a fleeting moment, my heart was moved. Something I had firmly believed in seemed to be wavering in my mind. Something's not right. What's not right? But he didn't say anything more, just held my hand and placed the rabbit lantern in my palm. This rabbit lantern, wasn't it bought for Juliet? Is it something she didn't want? So she threw it to me. I instinctively threw the rabbit lantern away. "Lyndon, if you liked Juliet, you could have gone to the Pei family to propose. Why did you have to mess with me?" This rabbit lantern was originally meant for Juliet, whether she wanted it or not. Don't you think it's rude to give it to me? Then let me tell you now, what Juliet doesn't want, I don't want either. Furious and agitated, my entire body trembled slightly, unaware that the veil hat in my hand had already fallen downstairs at some point. Lyndon's expression changed several times in an instant. Finally, he stared fixedly at me. He said with some disbelief, "Juliet, are you jealous?" "Jealous? I'm absolutely furious. I wish I could slap him. Like hell I will." Lyndon laughed. This piece of thousand-year-old ice actually smiled. His eyes were filled with laughter, his gaze at me gentle and tender, just like the expression he had when protecting the rabbit lantern in the crowd moments ago. "Juliet," he whispered to me, You don't think I have any feelings for Censor Malcolm's daughter, do you? I frowned. Why was he putting on this act with someone as insignificant as me? Your Highness need not worry. I won't gossip to others or tarnish your reputation and leases. I took a deep breath and spoke slowly. He is a prince, and moreover, the future emperor. My attitude just now was indeed somewhat excessive. Lyndon tilted his head slightly, seemingly not understanding my words. Why would you think there's anything between me and her? In my heart, I've always... He paused, his eyes fixed on my face as if observing my expression. Juliet, the one I've always wanted to marry is only you. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively felt he would say the name. Juliet. I didn't want to hear it, and it had nothing to do with me. I'm not interested in knowing. The only person I want to marry is you. His voice drowned out mine, each word ringing clearly in my ears. Yet I felt as if something was wrong with my hearing. What did he say? He wants to marry me. At this moment, I couldn't tell if it was surprise or shock. What I felt most was absurdity. Why would he want to marry me? In my past life, after we spent a night alone together in the hunting grounds, the Emperor decreed our marriage, and we complied. But our married life was far from happy. At first, though he spoke little, he stayed in my chamber every day, and in bed, we were much like an ordinary couple. But outside, rumors of his affection for Juliet reached my ears daily. 3 years later, my depression turned into illness, and he rarely came to my chamber anymore, only pretending to care by sending warm tonics every day, urging me to take care of my health. After he ascended the throne, he had even less free time. In that year or so, the number of times we met could be counted on one hand. No matter how you look at it, he should have loathed me to the core. Juliet, he whispered to me, his beautiful eyes unable to conceal his anxiety. Why aren't you speaking? Do you have feelings for me? He slightly bent forward, his eyes level with mine. For the first time in this life and the last, I looked at his face so carefully, observing his expression. Hope, anxiety, unease, bewilderment. Such an expression actually appeared on his face. After all these years of marriage, this kind of Lyndon is something I've never seen before. Lyndon, I had a dream, I said softly. I dreamed that the Emperor arranged our marriage, and I married you. But everyone told me you were fond of Censor Malcolm's daughter, and that you were forced to marry me. After marriage, you truly didn't care for me, so I died of sorrow, passing away at a young age. Lyndon's pupils abruptly contracted. Countless emotions flashed through his eyes in an instant. Just as I thought he would scold me for talking nonsense, he slowly straightened up, his expression colder and more severe than usual. I understand. His gaze fell upon the street. Juliet was at the gourd lantern stall on East Street, laughing and chatting with a few veiled young ladies nearby. Lyndon gazed at her with icy eyes, as if looking at something lifeless. Juliet. Lyndon familiarly took my hand. The previous aloofness and politeness had completely vanished, and for a moment, I even had the illusion of returning to our married life in the previous lifetime. I used to think you were forced into marriage with me, secretly despising my mother's lowly status and loathing any intimacy with me, yet having to feign affection, which eventually led to your melancholy demise. But you're still young, and you've always been broad-minded with a strong constitution. How could such minor issues drive you to depression and illness? It's all right. This time, we'll start anew. Pay no attention to those outsiders. I'll clear them all away. The summer heat was oppressive, and all the maids in the mansion were hiding in the pavilion to steal a moment of leisure. On such a scorching day, Juliet came to see me under the blazing sun. She looked flustered and hurried, with sweat smudging her makeup into uneven patches, and even failed to notice the mud staining the hem of her skirt. Not a trace remained of her usual composed and graceful demeanor. After sitting down across from me, she still managed to force a composed expression, though a faint, slightly disdainful smile lingered on her face. Your family, dear sister, is indeed a military household of distinction. The pavilions and towers in your estate all exude a bold and unrefined grandeur, making our scholarly residences seem overly fastidious in comparison. The Dajang dynasty had always valued civil officials over military ones, and the literati in the court naturally looked down upon the military officers. Even though last month Censor Malcolm was impeached for bribery and shielding the sale of official positions, and was demoted to serve as a county magistrate 1,000 miles away, Juliet still held her head high, proud as a swan in front of me. I took a sip of tea and said calmly, Lord Malcolm has already set off for Lugan County. How is it that you and your esteemed mother plan to stay alone in the capital enjoying your good fortune? Juliet, struck where it hurt, went through several changes of expression. Though she and her mother now remained in the Pei family's old residence in the capital, her father was originally a concubine-born son. When he held high office and generous emoluments, the family naturally let them do as they pleased. Now that Malcolm has been demoted, who in the Pei family still treats her and her mother with any respect? Life was not easy. Even so, outsiders still criticized them behind their backs, saying that the mother and daughter only cared about their own comfort, letting Malcolm go into exile alone thousands of miles away. Father couldn't bear to see us suffer and insisted we not follow him. She smiled as she spoke, motioning for a maid to bring over an embroidered box. I heard my sister hasn't been feeling well lately. This is snow swallow from Chai Bay. Very nourishing. I specially brought it for you to strengthen your health. As I looked at that beautiful wooden box, an eerie feeling began to spread from the depths of my heart. Juliet was 2 years older than me. In the previous life, when Lyndon ascended the throne, she was nearly 20 and had already been married for a year. Lyndon after ascending the throne, Juliet, who originally had little connection with me, frequently visited the palace to chat with me about everyday matters. Her words occasionally revealed Lyndon's affection for her. After this happened several times, I became unwilling to see her again. She didn't bother me anymore after that. However, the chief maid in my palace brought an exquisite wooden box, saying it contained rare snow swallows from the northern tribute. I had no leisure to pay attention to such matters at the time, letting them boil this snow swallow for me to eat day after day. About half a year later, my body began to feel heavy and weary. The imperial physician said at the time that my illness was caused by accumulated melancholy. This was a matter of the heart, with no remedy to be found. Sure enough, a year later, I passed away due to illness, and now, this box has appeared in Juliet's hands. I reached out to take it, only to find my hands trembling uncontrollably. Sister, what's wrong with you? Juliet asked with a smile. The courtyard gate was suddenly pushed open, and 2 stout maidservants strode in. Why is the young mistress here? We've been searching everywhere for you. Lord Malcolm has sent a letter requesting the young lady and madam to accompany him to Lugan County. Come with us, young mistress. Without another word, the 2 maidservants grabbed Juliet and began leading her out. Juliet turned pale with shock. Who are you people? How dare you be so rude? Let me go at once. The 2 women kept insisting they were sent by Lord Malcolm, yet their hands worked swiftly to bind Juliet tightly with coarse ropes, even stuffing a rag into her mouth. Before leaving, one of the women turned back to bow and take her leave from me. Apologies for startling you, Miss Liu. Rest assured, such incidents won't happen again in the future. Miss Liu, it would be best if you didn't touch the things in that box on the floor. If you're willing, this old servant can take them away to dispose of. I glanced at the snow swallow spilled on the floor, waves of lingering fear surging within me. In my past life, I actually met my end because of this thing. Take it away. I raised my hand slightly. Summer passed, and winter's chill arrived. Falling snow blanketed the entire capital in swan white. The crown prince was deposed. The court was in turmoil, and every capable prince began to covet the throne. Leonard stepped through the snow and pushed open the door of my warm pavilion, letting in a gust of chilly air. He exhaled a white breath and warmed his hands by the charcoal brazier before speaking. The 9th prince sent me to deliver a message. He asks if you'd be willing to meet him at Manhua Tower 7 days from now. 7 days later would be the Manhua Festival, on the winter solstice, when the cold is at its peak. The annual flower festival always brings clear skies and melting snow. Young men and women exchange flowers on this day, giving them to those they admire. It is both an expression of affection and a prayer for the warmth and blossoms of the coming spring. Juliet, I'm not saying this as your elder brother, but with the crown prince deposed and the court in chaos, the 9th prince still has you on his mind at such a critical time. It's really affecting his performance. If you're willing to agree, then agree with him. If not, then let him die without regrets. I glared at him. What's all this talk about death? At your age, you still have no sense of propriety in your words. Leonard pouted. Fine, already taking his side. He stood up and left. It seems you've agreed. I'll go tell him now. He's still waiting outside in the snow. I was slightly startled and hurriedly found a white fox fur-trimmed cloak to stuff into Leonard's hands. Take it to him. Leonard glared at me. Why don't you say to get one for your brother too? Leonard left cursing under his breath. I sat back down with a sense of melancholy, but I had no heart to continue my needlework. Lyndon said the one he always wanted to marry was me. He truly cares for me. Yet it's also true that we didn't get along well in our past life. Even without Juliet's deliberately created misunderstandings. And even if I hadn't been poisoned by the Pay family and died young, could we have lived that long life well? Loving each other as husband and wife until old age. He will be an emperor in the future. Perhaps he could remain devoted to me for 3 or 4 years. But in the long years that follow, could he truly stay faithful to me alone? Am I truly willing to miss him and have no connection with him in this lifetime? My thoughts are in chaos. I can't figure it out. I can't understand. Having lived 2 lives, my wisdom hasn't grown at all. On the day of the flower festival, the weather was unbelievably clear. The snow on the ground had melted, and after a morning of intense sunlight, the streets were dry and clean. Young men and women, who had been cooped up at home for too long, came out in droves. Though the girls wore veiled hats, their excitement was unmistakable. As soon as I stepped down from the carriage, a young man, blushing, approached me and tried to hand me a sprig of plum blossoms. Dora whispered in my ear, "Miss, His Highness is on the Manhua Tower, watching you right now." My neck stiffened as I looked up toward Manhua Tower, and sure enough, I saw Lyndon leaning casually against the railing, dressed in a deep purple robe with a black velvet collar, exuding an air of noble elegance. His sharp phoenix eyes were fixed on my face. Before I could react, I noticed a young maiden timidly stepping to Lyndon's side, offering him a branch of plum blossoms. The corner of the maiden's veil lifted, revealing a youthful and delicate face, gazing at Lyndon. Her expression brimmed with shyness, yet her eyes held firm courage. She murmured something under her breath, likely words of bold confession. She probably didn't know Lyndon's true identity, mistaking him for nothing more than a handsome young master from a wealthy family. My heart skipped a beat as I turned to the young man offering the flower branch and said, "Apologies, but my heart already belongs to another. I cannot accept your branch." Without waiting for his response, I gathered my skirts and hurriedly ran toward the flower-filled tower. Today the flower-filled tower was open to the public, and the building was packed with young men and women, making it quite an effort to push through the crowd. By the time I reached the 3rd floor, I was already slightly out of breath. The young girl still stood by Lyndon's side, seemingly waiting for him to accept the flower branch. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, calling out softly, "Miss." The girl turned her head, her eyes filled with confusion. I glanced at Lyndon, who was staring at me intently. I stuffed the plum blossom branch into his hand, curled my lips, and smiled at the girl. "Sorry, but he's mine now." In the 23rd year of Yuancheng, the emperor decreed our marriage, ordering me and the 9th Prince Lyndon to wed the following September. In December of the following year, Lyndon was appointed crown prince, and I became the crown princess. At the end of that year, it was said that the family of Malcolm in Lugan County had been tragically massacred by mountain bandits. In the spring of the 3rd year, the emperor passed away, and Crown Prince Lyndon ascended the throne, appointing me as empress that same month. I'm not sure if it's because of our rebirth, but the timeline is slightly different from our previous life. The biggest difference is that in this life, Lyndon and I actually had a child just 2 years after getting married. Lyndon showed extreme irrationality regarding this child. When the child was still in my womb, he found everything unsatisfactory and secretly complained every day that the child came too quickly and too early. Once the child was born, he adored it beyond measure. When the baby was barely 3 months old, he defied all opposition from the court officials and named the child the Crown Prince. "This child looks just like you, as beautiful as you are." He repeated these words every day until they grated on my ears. In my previous life, even after knowing him for so many years and being married to him for several, I had never seen him so talkative. I have lived a long life in this world. At the age of 40, Lyndon couldn't wait to pass the throne to his 18-year-old crown prince, leisurely becoming the retired emperor. Juliet, we wasted a lifetime in our previous life, so naturally, we must make up for it twofold in this one. He held my hand and took me to travel across the land. In this life, we had only one child, Lyndon, and he had only me as his wife. I lived to the age of 89 and passed away peacefully. Lyndon outlived me by 2 days. As soon as my funeral was over, he followed me in death. Meeting again in the underworld, we both smiled, holding hands. We walked together towards the light. Previous life Lyndon perspective. I am the 9th prince of the Dajong dynasty. Sounds like royal blood. Quite impressive. But just because I received a few extra words of praise from the Grand Tutor while accompanying the Crown Prince in his studies. The very next day, my mother hanged herself from the palace beam. From that day on, I learned to conceal my brilliance. While my noble-born royal siblings formed close-knit groups, I always stood alone at a distance, as if I were invisible. No one ever noticed me, until a person named Juliet entered the palace. She seemed oblivious to how others ignored me, nor did she understand what my mother's lowly status implied. Lyndon, this sweet cake is delicious. Would you like to try it? Lyndon, my eldest brother bought me a parrot today. It's so amusing. I'll bring it for you to see tomorrow. That Grand Tutor is truly detestable. I merely misquoted 2 lines from the admonition to Chang'an, and he actually went to complain to my father, saying I don't study seriously. My father spanked my hands until they turned red. Lyndon, your handwriting is so beautiful. Could you teach me? My eldest brother always mocks my writing, saying it looks like earthworms. Lyndon, hey, it's endlessly annoying. I have no patience for her idle gossip. I must hide my shortcomings from my siblings. Yet I can't let my father think I'm foolish. I must curry favor with the childless consort Chin to find myself a more powerful mother. I must win over court officials and plant spies in the Crown Prince's residence. I must tread carefully, avoiding every overt and covert scheme and slander. Every moment, I must remain on high alert. The slightest moment of carelessness could lead to irreversible disaster. Until the year she turned 20. Juliet went missing during the spring hunt. At that moment, I could think of nothing else and galloped frantically into the forest to search for her. Fortunately, I found her not long after. We fell into a sinkhole. I later found out that this sinkhole was dug by Lao San's men. That idiot planned to kill the Crown Prince here. After Juliet and I left, rumors began spreading in the capital. The words spoken were extremely harsh, and by the time I wanted to send someone to stop the rumors, it was already too late. I was afraid Juliet might do something drastic. So that very night, I entered the palace to request my father's decree for the marriage. The emperor seated high above appeared calm, and I couldn't fully discern his thoughts. He might think I was trying to form an alliance with the Duke of Chen's household through this marriage. At that time, the Crown Prince repeatedly made serious mistakes, and the court situation was extremely sensitive. Any rash action by a prince could arouse the emperor's suspicion, but I had no choice but to take this risk. Fortunately, the emperor granted my request, but what I didn't expect was, Juliet would actually reject me. After marriage, she lost her former cheerful chattiness, becoming increasingly silent and withdrawn. I should have been angry, but the sad truth is I didn't resent her at all. I even felt I owed her an apology. It was my failure to stop the rumors in time that forced her into marrying me. She detests me, and I dare not get too close to her. Yet even so, 3 years later, she still fell ill. The imperial physician said it was due to accumulated melancholy. My heart ached with bitterness, and I loathed myself even more. Why should I assume she'd be willing to marry me just because she talked to me a few more times? I don't dare to see her again. Perhaps if I stay away, her melancholy will gradually fade, and her illness will slowly improve. But I miss her. Every night, I could only wait until she was sound asleep before sneaking into her chamber, lying silently by her side. Before she woke the next morning, I would hurry away, wrapped in a black cloak with subtle patterns. I shivered and huddled in the corner of the cave. I could only watch as her once vibrant face grew increasingly haggard and withered day by day. In just 1 year, Juliet had died. She held my hand before she died, using her last ounce of strength to say, "I'm sorry. If there's another life, I won't marry you again." I don't understand this sentence. If you feel sorry, why won't you marry me again? If you won't marry me, then why feel sorry? I once aspired to be a wise ruler, but Juliet died, and suddenly nothing seemed to matter anymore. I summoned the celestial masters to the palace to perform rituals. I ordered the construction of an altar, summoning all celestial masters, mages, Taoist priests, and monks across the land to perform rites for my Juliet. I want the next life. I want the next life for me and Juliet. Finally, as I opened my eyes, I saw Juliet again. How wonderful! The next life for me and Juliet has begun. The end.